Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. And I can see that quite a few people have joined already. So I think in the interest of time, we will begin the webinar. Hi again, everybody. Really glad that most of you could show up for the webinar today. I am Rachna, and I will be acting as the moderator for this session. A brief introduction about myself. I'm currently working as the delivery manager with BizAcuity and have been associated with the gaming industry for almost 12 years, wearing different hats at different stints of my career. So I have worked as a business analyst on multiple predictive and prescriptive use cases in online gaming, as a product manager for a cloud-based SaaS analytics platform, as well as a delivery manager for various enterprise-wide BI and analytics projects within the domain of online gaming. Let me now introduce you to our speakers for the webinar, Mr. Aditya Satyadev and Mr. Sudhir Kale. So Aditya is the CEO and co-founder of BizAcuity, which was established in 2011 as an IT services and data analytics consulting company with core expertise in the gaming industry. BizAcuity's global clients include gaming giants like Mohegan Sun, Mounties Group, UK's largest iGaming company Entain, sports betting giant Betfred, and Lotoland. Aditya has comprehensive experience and sound knowledge of building business processes and technological solutions, including enterprise architecture design, business intelligence platforms, and customer management solutions. He has been instrumental in building the data infrastructure of many gaming companies across Europe. Aditya was a guest lecturer at the University of Reno at Nevada, Las Vegas in 2019, where he spoke on topics related to the online gaming industry, as well as data analytics and AI for gaming operators. In 2020, he spearheaded the design and launch of Gambit, a SaaS-based platform for enabling gaming operators and suppliers with visual and predictive analytics solutions. Welcome to the webinar, Aditya, and we look forward to your views on our topic for today. Our second speaker for the day is Mr. Sudhir H. Kale. He's a PhD and the founder and CEO of Game Plan Consultants, a business that offers boutique, high-level consultancy to gaming and other businesses all over the world. Previously, he has been on the business faculty at Bond University in Australia, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Arizona State University, National University of Singapore, and University of South Carolina. Sudhir also served as Distinguished Professor of Gaming Management at University of Macau. He has published over 100 academic papers in scholarly journals and proceedings. Until June 2015, Sudhir was a full-time advisor to Sands China Limited, the largest gaming company in the world. At SCL, he was in charge of creating an optimal customer experience for guests across 6 hotels, 5 casinos, and billions in retail sales. He has a solid understanding of how culture influences player behavior. His gaming client list includes diverse casino companies such as Marina Bay Sands, Galaxy Macau, Star World Hotel and Casino, Mohegan Sun, the Olympic Entertainment Group, Sun International, Casino Australia, Mocha Slots, IGT, Win Macau, and Crown Casino. He has been a regular speaker at the Global Gaming Expo, Gaming, Racing and Wagering Australasia, and at the University of Nevada Executive Development Program for Senior Gaming Executives. Previously, he has also been a co-founder and director of Kale Consultants Limited. Sudhir's opinion on gambling, management of casinos, and addiction have been routinely quoted by global media, including Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, the Financial Review, the New York Times, New York Post, Bloomberg, and Reuters. Welcome to the webinar, Sudhir, and we are really looking forward to hearing more from you.
Sudhir, I think you are on mute. We are not able to hear you. No, I was just saying thank you so much, Rajna. After that introduction, we don't have much time to discuss anything else.
But that was a pretty impressive, Sudhir. I was not sure of what is that I should, leave out and what I should give away. Our audience really need to hear that. All right.
Okay, I'm flattered. Let's move on.
All right. So today's webinar is going to be on AI for land-based casinos, what really works and what may not deliver. So there is a lot of noise in the market currently about analytics and tech advancements in the industry in the last few years. And the online gaming industry has made some big advancements in the adoption of AI. But the land-based casinos are still doing some catching up there. There has also been mixed opinions about the effectiveness of AI from a lot of stakeholders. So by the end of the webinar, you would have greater clarity and understanding on the whole of what's going on in the industry and where exactly AI can help deliver results and ROIs. But before we begin, just to understand our audience better, we have a question we would like to ask all of you, and it will show up in the screen in front of you. So, which is, has your organization implemented any AI solution? And you can answer this by using the poll button, which is the fourth from the right at the panel below you. All right. I see that the participants are in the process of voting. And we seem to have a mixed, audience here. So there is, 33% of audience say they have a custom solution. There are 16% who say that they have tried and tested and it did not work, and 50% are saying that they are yet to implement something like this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's very interesting. So all right, so let's begin. But just to set the stage for our discussion, I'm going to ask my speakers to begin by giving a short answer to a question which comes foremost to my mind. That is AI in the casino industry overhyped? Sudhir.
I don't think it's overhyped, Rachna. It's just that I think people tend to have unrealistic expectations in terms of what AI can and cannot do. And that creates some spectacular failures. So I think AI is where CRM was 25, 30 years ago in terms of more hype than substance, fairly high failure rate, as we saw in our informal poll, albeit a small sample size. But nonetheless, I think 33% said they have tried and not succeeded or something like that. And that is because of the objective not being very clear, or you are trying to employ AI in a casino that is not very large in terms of the number of slot machines, in terms of the number of tables, and in terms of the revenues that you are generating. So I think it's a confluence of these two things. One is fuzzy objectives, and second, where your company is not the right candidate for deploying AI.
All right.
Right. And I think this whole notion of AI can do anything, right? And it's a magic wand. You implement AI and all your problem get solved. it is something that is not realistic expectation, as Sudhir mentioned. So if the approach is taken right, and if we decide or define the objectives very clearly, uh, we have seen cases where it has worked, but most of the cases it has failed. We'll discuss more about why things have not worked, or whether it is something that cannot work. A hype is typically when you see things talked about a lot, but it doesn't work, right? But I think, as Sudhi said, like we gave some time to CRM to kind of mature in its implementation, the different use cases where it can be applied. That is something that we have to see.
Right. All right. So I think that sets the agenda, and I mean, we begin by talking about the current market scenario, and what are the how regulations have an impact, also play a role in this, in that uh, market scenario, the challenges faced by the casinos, land-based casinos, the need for AI, and how AI can, whether AI can really help in meet facing those challenges and conquering them. Then the types of analytics which casinos can leverage, and then we will shift gear a little, and we will talk about why some AI projects fail. Then we will go on to talk about the data ecosystem in casinos, how to formulate an optimal data strategy, and how we can leverage the cloud to come up with an optimal AI solution, and what does the future of casino technology look like, right? All right. So let's begin by talking about the current market scenario. So globally, we have seen a huge uptick in business, right, for casinos, partially due to the pent-up demand from the pandemic and people wanting to, have that social connect again. And in Las Vegas, for instance, where profitability of the casinos is dependent not only on their gaming businesses but other segments as well, everything seems to be opening up now. And there are many new casinos which are coming up in the next 3 years, like the Dream LA, Fountain Mirage, Station Casino, etc. So, Sudhir, my question is, what do you think of the global market scenario, and especially if you could talk about Asian and Australian markets as well, since you have done, a significant amount of work there?
So, yeah, so there's a wide discrepancy in terms of the US and the rest of the world. For example, in the US, at least for the last 12 to 15 months, every month we are creating no new gaming records in terms of the revenues. Whereas in places like Macau, for example, at China, where I used to work, we used to get 200,000 people through the doors every single day. Now we'd be lucky if we get 200. So Macau has fallen victim to COVID, as well as the restrictions imposed by the Chinese government on Chinese players, which accounts for 85 to 90% of the customers. So Macau is not doing well. Singapore is recovering very well right now in terms of both Marina Bay Sands as well as Resort World Sentosa. Those are the two casinos over there. And I think within a year or two, Marina Bay Sands would show about 2 billion in EBITDA. So that part of it is doing well. The Philippines is recovering quite well. So those would be the major markets. Europe, again, is very segmented. Some countries are doing well, some others are not. But then overall, what's happening is not so much the revenues, but your market share. Because during the pandemic, when everything was closed, and after the casinos opened, there has been lots of pent-up demand. And that pent-up demand is accounting for the rise in revenues. However, customer loyalty has taken a huge hit. Survey by Synergy Blue indicated that only about 18% of the customers would go back to their original casinos where they used to be regulars pre-pandemic. So on the one hand, revenues are increasing. On the other hand, loyalty has taken a huge beating. And I think that's why we have to re-engender the loyalty, get back players to be regulars with us. And I think that's where initiatives like AI, CRM would be of immense value.
Yeah.
Right. And I think one more trend that I see that is coming out very clearly is, and especially I'm talking from a European iGaming market perspective, a lot of iGaming companies are tying up with land-based businesses in the US to create a virtual layer or a online layer for their casinos. So to maintain the brand loyalty with the customers, they are also coming up with their own applications which can run on the mobile or on the desktops. So even when players are not getting into the casino, they still carry the loyalty, brand loyalty along with them. And so quite a few changes that are happening in that market, and especially in the US regulatory scenario, where many of the states have kind of opened up the online casinos. So that is another area which is kind of catching up very fast.
Correct. And like you mentioned, Aditya, that in Europe, a lot of land-based casinos are also opening up to online. How are what is the online industry doing in the meanwhile? Have they, posed even a greater threat to the land-based players? I mean, in terms of their adoption to AI, especially?
See, if you look at the online gaming, I think the evolution of online gaming happened long time back, and because online gaming has tons of data and it's built on technology, right? You have the the level of AI that is currently being used in online industry is far ahead of the casinos, the land-based casinos, which are probably and personally experiencing with working with some of the casinos in Europe and some native casinos in the US. They are still running some legacy applications, and not much have advancement has happened in terms of how to utilize the data effectively to run the business. So there is a huge gap, and in terms of the land-based casinos in Europe, they are also kind of coming up with larger properties like Hippodrome and all. They are coming up, but again, they have to make sure that they have presence on both sides, because in the online space, there's a lot of competition. You have some very big players there, and for the land-based casinos to make a mark in that space, it is going to be a challenge.
Right. Interesting. So, in addition, like regulation plays a very major role in the casino industry, right? And with time, it has only become more and more stringent. So, Sudhir, can you shed some light on what does the regulatory environment look like?
Again, it varies immensely from one jurisdiction to the other, even within the same country. But for instance, Macau does not allow any facial recognition. Macau does not allow any data to leave the shores of Macau. So it's fairly stringent in terms of protecting the privacy of the customers. And that always has to be taken into account when you're thinking of using AI or facial recognition or machine learning or any of those emerging technologies. Whereas in places like the US, everything is okay. Even facial recognition is okay, so long as you post a sign outfit saying that, okay, we are using this particular software. So it would be very hard to generalize. I'm not that familiar with Europe, but I would say that the regulations would be somewhere between the US and Macau in terms of how stringent they are. Nothing can be as stringent as Macau. And nothing can be as loose as the US, I would say, apart from some
in fact,
remote jurisdictions like Cambodia or Vietnam or something like that.
Yeah. So in Europe, I think they have come up with very strict regulations where AI can be used, right? So they have kind of defined applications, certain applications as high risk, then some which are prohibited, like facial recognition in public places, that is prohibited. You cannot use public places facial recognition technology to take unnatural advantages from the situation, or create harm for the individuals. The high risk are the ones where you're trying to find the credit worthiness of the particular customer. And there are certain cases that they have put in the high risk category. There are certain AI applications which they say that they're fine, like chatbots, where you are trying to create more conducive environment for the customers, or creating better user experience for the customer. Those are the applications, AI applications, which are okay. So yes, even in Europe, there are certain things which are strict no-no, and especially in the areas of responsible gaming, where we are talking about people getting addicted to gambling, and how do you make sure, as a business, as a casino, how do you make sure that you are identifying such cases and you are taking actions against them? So quite a strict regime on the regulation side, on the gaming environment that Europe has put in place.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, and there, I mean, given these challenges, it opens up a lot of opportunities also, right? But before we come to the opportunities, let's talk about some of the most, prominent challenges of that the industry is facing, given this global outlook, given this scenario, varied global outlook, as well as the very stringent regulatory environment which these casinos operate in. What are some of the major challenges which the industry faces, and where you think AI can be of some help?
Mhm. I would say in terms of all of those, most of the things that you have listed here, they are either a consequence of or lead to customer experience. Okay. So for example, if you don't provide the right customer experience, you won't have maximizing of player spend, or you won't have any loyalty, you won't have sustainable growth. Unless you capture the player behavior, you cannot provide the right customer experience. Okay? The other two, of course, are external kinds of challenges, which are increasing competition and online gaming. And I think these are online gaming in particular is going to pose increasingly bigger threat to land-based casinos, particularly because of what's happening with regards to metaverse and blockchain. That in one quarter, the ICE casino could generate something like 143 over $14 million in revenue, and that's just the start. So you have Decentraland or some of the other sandbox who have made big bets in terms of using metaverse and using blockchain for gambling purposes. So I think over the next 5 years, that could be a huge challenge for land-based casinos, because you cannot really replicate the experiences that you have in the virtual world and in the augmented reality world in a land-based casino. There are certain physical challenges to that.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And I think all other areas essentially boil down to, as Sudhi said, it's a customer experience and customer behavior thing, right? And the biggest challenge for the land-based casinos is how to collect data across the different applications. So the underlying theme you can possibly, or the reason behind all these challenges is, or rather how to contain these challenges or overcome these challenges, is how well you can manage your data, how well you can build your applications using AI ML to overcome these. So when we are talking about understanding the customer behavior over a period of time, You have tons of data that you need to analyze. You have to understand a lot of hidden parameters or behavioral attributes of the customer that you need to figure out, right? So
Right.
I think the key challenge that I see here is how robust your data platform is, how robust your applications are, and how clear you are in terms of how you are going to get values of the data, right? And to solve these challenges.
Yes.
So the other question that comes to my when we are talking about the challenge, and then we are talking about improving customer experience, right? And we are saying that AI would be able to help in that. One question that comes to my mind is that can AI, to what extent can AI, solve these problems or meet these challenges? Is it like a magic wand, or which is going to uh, solve all the problems, or is there anything based on your experience that you have seen typically where we can quantify the value impact of AI initiatives, uh, you know to meet these challenges?
I think what separates AI from some of the other techniques that have been traditionally used over the last 50 years is that the model keeps improving as it analyzes more and more data. So thus far, we have not had anything else that was capable of doing that. I mean, of course, we still had high-powered statistical modeling techniques that have, like I said, have been used for several decades. But AI is the only one where the algorithm self-teaches to be able to provide better results in terms of whatever you're trying to optimize or whatever you are trying to achieve. So in that regard, it is quite different. Second would be the number of variables that AI can attack. I mean, as an academic, we always believed in parsimony. The less the number of variables to explain a particular phenomenon, the better it is. Whereas with AI, you can look at 2,000, 3,000 variables related to a single customer. You're not leaving anything on the table. And that does not result in additional cost as you add more variables. So that's a huge advantage. And then, of course, you're creating a segment of one, which would have been prohibitively expensive if you did not have the technology of AI.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. Right. So I think the need for AI, which we have anyway, we have been talking about it all throughout, and we have said that like Sudhir, you just mentioned, and interestingly, we have this statistics over here that only around 10% of players indicated their intention of returning to the pre-pandemic casino of choice,
Mhm.
right? And so we are saying that AI is really needed here because brand loyalty has taken a huge hit, and somewhere customers, our guests, are expecting more superior services, better customization, more personalization. And that's where the role of hyper personalized services is coming in. So
Mhm.
right, so anything you want to add to that?
Well, I mean, her hyper personalization sounds good, but then, apart from AI, it costs money, right?
Correct. Yes.
If I'm going to design every room according to the fantasies of every guest, it's going to cost me money. So if I'm going to, change the layout of my casino to suit every guest, that is physically impossible. So, when we say hyper personalization, there are a few things that can be personalized. Frankly, most other things cannot be personalized. What can be personalized is the communication that you have with every individual. Okay.
Mhm.
The communication aspects of it, the timing of the offers, and
Correct.
the type of offer. Those things can be personalized. whereas most other things are a given.
That's correct. I mean, it's more about understanding the needs of the customer and then coming. So in a typical marketing scenario, you look at what you have, who you are offering to, what you are offering, and when you are offering, and that is what I think becomes more important. And when we are talking about personalization, so far the approach has been you create segments of customers depending on their behavior, either on the property side or on the gaming side, or the events that they are attending, and then you have a generic message going out or a generic offer going out. Now, looking at individual customer, identifying not only what the customer has done in the past or the player has played in the past, but also looking at the potential of what he can do or the prediction of what he can do. Based on that, a lot of things can be personalized, and in terms of not only just the fact that he comes and goes into a particular section of the casino, we might want to give another a $50 offer to go and play in some or a free spin on a slot machine which we have recently launched and we want to popularize. So there are quite a few things, and it has to be of his liking. It has been so far that we have been used to carpet bombing. We roll out the same offer to everybody, but here we are looking at if the offer is not relevant in today's world, if the offer is not relevant to the customer, it's rather than creating a good vibe, it creates a negative vibe, that why you are trying to sell me something, right? So that experience, that is something that we can really enhance for the customer and give the feeling that we know their needs, right? And of course, any sort of change in the layout of the casino or those things are not possible, but we can definitely guide the player in certain direction and possibly bring him certain offers which he may like.
Yeah.
Yes. Interesting point. So, so what are the different types of analytics that casinos can typically leverage? Right.
Mhm.
So we can talk about what happened, which is, why it happened, what is likely to happen, and how we change what is happening. So,
Mhm.
Sudhir, would you like to talk a little bit more on this?
Yeah, so what happened is in terms of the regular reports that you generate through your casino management system, or for a much smaller casino through your Excel spreadsheet, whatever it is, it will tell you what the revenues were, or which table was hot, which table lost money, all of those things. Why it happened, where you're relating the phenomenon that happened to some kind of underlying cause.
Causal
And
analysis.
in terms of that, you could use your voice of customer data for that. Look at it in terms of what happened as a lagging variable, and why it happened in terms of certain causes as the leading variable. So it could be because you provided better customer experience, for example. That's what resulted in increase of market share, or you have a new act that you have in terms of your entertainment, and that drew a lot of crowds, and they played whatever it may be. So those have been or you analyze the effectiveness of your advertising campaign or your promotions. So that has been happening for many years now. What is likely to happen, we are kind of 50-50. We don't really know a whole lot in the absence of AI. And how can we change what is happening? For that, definitely, we need some experimentation. You need some kind of a profile of the customer that you can match with other profiles, and then it can tell you, whether this customer is going to churn or whether this customer is going to be loyal, what the spending pattern of this customer is going to be like. So I would say number 3 and number 4, that's where your AI helps you a lot in terms of being able to predict what is likely to happen. And number four, how can we tweak what is going to happen to our advantage where what we want to happen.
Mhm.
Right. And I think one example for why it happened, I mean, during pandemic when things were coming up again, we did one analysis on the Google mobility data and the air traffic flow across US, right? And we correlated that with the revenues in different cities. So cities who opened up early, there were more revenue. And in fact, we worked with a casino who had properties in different cities, and they wanted to bring their staff back. They wanted to do the planning of how and when we should get these people back on the floor. And that kind of visibility where we said, okay, now you see the numbers increasing, but then there is a reason for that because people have started moving around, people are going out, right? And then there are certain regulations that are changing around that area, and that is where you can leverage or be the first mover advantage to open up and provide certain offers for to bring people back. So I think a lot of things that we talk about in terms of why it is happening can be not just explained with the internal data, but with the external data as well. And then if we look at the historical information and build some models around it, what is likely to happen or predict, right? And if we can build those correlation and causations, then definitely it is going to help us change what can happen in the future, right?
Right. All right. So coming to NLP, so natural language processing is another, word that we hear often when we talk about AI, right? And so how much can NLP be leveraged in a land-based, casino setup, Aditya?
Yeah, so I think one example that we have seen where one of the largest casinos in US, they introduced a personal concierge service based on NLP, where
Mhm.
you can ask, it's like Siri for the players, right? If you want to find anything about the casino, if you want to communicate with somebody, there is a backend, AI-driven backend, which responds with the relevant answer. So if you're
Mhm.
looking for, let's say, a fine wine in the property, it will tell you where to go and find it, right? Or if you're looking for a certain type of casino or certain type of game, it will probably guide you how to get there. So that is one area. Obviously, the chatbots that we have that has helped our casinos in terms of reducing the number of people doing customer service for external calls or internal calls. Those are also quite helpful, right? And we have also seen casinos leveraging social media data where
Mhm.
they collect the inputs on different forums, on Facebook, Twitter, and try to understand what is happening, what customers are talking about them, about the competition. So a lot of things, the logic that is built uses natural language processing algorithms, and gives a very good input to the business, to the casinos in terms of what's going out in the market, right? So if the competition, if your rating is going down on a particular forum, then what you can do to improve it, right? If there is a shift of your comments which are against you, and then certain people are moving towards your competition, and be it Strip, Vegas Strip, or Atlantic City, or anywhere you go, you will have 3, 4 properties together. So the moment you have a bad experience, you tend to go to the next casino that is there. So how do you kind of bring them back? And first of all, have the visibility of it, right?
Mm.
And I think these are the some of the use cases where NLP is being used.
Yeah. And possibly helps you respond very fast, right? Like unlike without this sort of a solution in place, where by the time you realize the damage is done, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Uh, Coming to one other solution, which is a very big problem area, in fact, which is talked about, and is the anti-money laundering solutions. So Sudhir, do you want to talk about how land-based industry can use AI and ML? Are there solutions in place which they can use for fraud detection and anti-money laundering?
Mhm. Well, this has become a huge issue right now, as you might have seen in Australia with our two flagship properties over here, which is Star and Crown Casino. Both of them
Yes.
have had to pay hefty fines because
Mhm.
of lack of proper controls and protocols for anti-money laundering as well as CTF, counterterrorism financing. Uh, Definitely, you can use AI to be able to identify certain behavioral patterns uh, of certain customers. And then, also there's another database called WorldCheck, which actually tells you who are politically interested parties. Most casinos nowadays have protocols in place where any transaction worth more than $10,000 has to be reported on a form. So I think there are good guardrails in terms of ensuring that instances of AML and CTF are minimized. However, AI will give you that additional ammunition, if you will, uh, to be able to control or identify and then control any instances of AML.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. I think most of the solutions that are implemented are post facto, where something has happened and you have put controls there to
Mhm.
to identify those and take corrective action there. But I think where AI comes handy is whether you can predict well in advance, and then
Yeah.
you have certain variables which you track. So it's more from the perspective that you're trying to understand the behavior at the very beginning, and then there are multiple use cases where either we are trying to find a VIP early in the stage of his life in the casino, or it is a case of somebody getting into addiction mode when they're playing in a casino, or the money laundering thing. So when you see two people coming together, one person is luring to the other person on a poker table, or in a peer-to-peer game, uh, that definitely raises a flag, right? So you can see
Right.
there is a money dumping. So even these transactions, and it need not necessarily be a 10,000 transaction, one single transaction. It could be spread over a week, that 10,000 over next 10 days, and then nobody will catch it. But if the data shows that somebody is who was not regular for quite some time and suddenly has become regular doing transactions much above the average value for n number of days, and then again goes back to normal, then definitely that raises a flag, right?
Mm.
So that is where the having an AI model which kind of identifies these patterns, which are not just applying the rules of controls that you have for your AML or counter terror funding. Um, we can actually identify such cases,
Right.
and maybe blacklist those individuals.
Right. And the impact is huge, right? I mean, because the impact is not just in terms of the money which would have been laundered, but if you come under the lens of the regulator, then the impact it can get very damaging. So yeah, any additional
Correct.
guardrail, it doesn't hurt. So
Yeah, I think even in Europe, if you look at the responsible gaming cases, I mean, casinos have paid millions and millions of euros as fine because they couldn't find certain cases.
yeah, right. Interesting. All right. So now, before we proceed any further, I think what's very important to discuss is why these AI projects fail. We spoke about quite a few AI solutions which can be implemented, and but why do these projects fail? Why do we hear, even in our survey, like we saw that not all AI solutions, the way they are implemented, are successful. So, what are some of the main reasons why these projects fail?
You can take the lead, Aditya, since you do this on a daily basis.
Yeah, so I think there are quite a few factors that come into picture, right? And as I said, everybody thinks that AI is a magic wand which will solve all the problems. But behind the scenes, you have to be very clear in terms of what you want to achieve. Even if we are talking about exploratory data analysis and trying to figure out what the data tells, you should still have some idea in terms of, or should have the ability to figure out those specific patterns, right? So first thing first, the business objectives that you have defined, whether you are doing the right things or defining the project right? So there is a gap between these two, and it is not called successful because it was not able to. So any project that you start, you define your objectives, right? But if that is not aligned to the business's expectations is way too high, and the project's probably not able to deliver to that extent. And what we discussed initially is it's still evolving, right? We are still trying to figure out certain things on the AI side. We have tons of algorithms that we can try, but so we need to set the expectation right. That is one thing. The second thing is again how this is being used. So there are so many AI models that are developed, but they are developed and they're kept somewhere. So operationalizing all these models again becomes a challenge, right? How do you make sure that you have uh, you basically do what you preach, right? So you have your AI solution, but if you are not taking actions that the AI is recommending, then there is a challenge there as well. A lot of things that I mean, there are few things that I can talk about data, but I will probably like Sudhi to throw some light on the business side before I get into the data side.
Oh, Sudhir, you're on mute, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. So apart from some of the technical issues or reasons why AI projects fail, uh, I still think that the human element does play a big role, and you still have people who deliver the product. You still have human-to-human connections. So lots of times there's this tendency to assume that AI will take care of the lapses in your customer service. It doesn't. Ultimately, that personal touch matters as well. So, you know, yeah, there could be mismatch in terms of objectives and outcomes, or lack of coordination between departments, or having silos, all of those things. But nonetheless, I think unless you have the right culture in place, which is conducive to providing an excellent customer experience, a culture in place which encourages employee engagement, then the best bells and whistles in the world are not going to save you.
Mm,
Absolutely, yeah.
yes, that's a very important point. All right. So quickly, I think we are running a little behind time, and so I'll just do a quick time check. But we wanted to talk about the data ecosystem in casinos, right? And just to like Aditya, can you give a brief understanding about what the data ecosystem in casinos looks like, and how then we formulate a correct data strategy around it? Because data, we have been talking about data, right, a lot, and data being at the heart of all these solutions, and one of the primary reasons why AI projects fail. So
Right. Right. So I think rather than looking at from a pure data perspective, I would probably like to highlight how the casinos operate, right? So every function, let's say in a casino, uses its own application. So, for example, the restaurants and everything, they use their own POS system. For lodging and everything, there is a separate system. For gaming, I have seen casinos who have implemented Aristocrat, IGT, Scientific Games. All games are there, right? Then you have the operations where we are talking about the customer service, the roster of the hosts, and all those things is maintained in a different system. So what it looks like is all the casinos have different applications and data resides in different systems in different disparate sources, as well as there's not much focus on the external data. So to cut the story short, we need to make sure that the data in the casinos have to be brought together, internal from all applications together. They have to be linked together because there may be no connecting joints between each data set. So there has to be some effort that needs to go to put them together. And that is why it becomes very important to have a very well-defined data strategy. And then when we talk about data strategy, we are talking about start thinking the business from a data perspective rather. So in so far, we have seen that data is an outcome of a business process, right? Which is still right. But when you are defining your business processes, if you start thinking from the data, so that strategy has to change. How we are collecting the data, what application we are bringing into the system, how integratable they are, whether they provide APIs or not. So if you start thinking on the data strategize on the data architecture side, and probably in your core you have thinking about enterprise data architecture, right? Then it becomes much simpler for you to translate the value of the data that you are generating through different applications to a business outcome.
Right. So we wanted to talk about leveraging cloud solutions for AI. I think, but
So let me just quickly wrap it up. I
yeah.
think what also we have seen in the recent past is a lot of casinos who have had put their on-prem applications, which is inside the property. There will be one block where you will have the servers and everything. But now they are realizing that if they have properties in 3 different cities, it is from a corporate perspective, it becomes very difficult to manage the resources. So now there is a need that we see that everybody is moving to the cloud, and there are various options that are available. You have the Google Cloud, you have AWS. It's your every cloud provider provides different services that you can utilize. So it's more like it has become a mix and match where you pick certain services from there, get your data to the cloud, get data from all your properties to a single place, and then build your infrastructure, data infrastructure on top of it.
Great.
So that is where cloud becomes really handy
Great.
for implementing
Yeah.
those AI solutions.
Yes. I'm sorry, gentlemen. We have a hard stop here. I think it was a great discussion. And I mean, we could have gone on for some more time. I would like to thank our speakers here. And to the audience, any questions, please feel free to email them to us. We will be happy to get back to you with the answers. And thank you, everybody, for your time. It was a very insightful session once again. And we hope to have more of these discussions. Thanks a lot, Sudhir. Aditya.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Rachana. And anybody wants to write to me or to Aditya, please do so.
Yes.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.